We're back this week with Stephanie Dobson. Stephanie is a lawyer and mediator at Hanka Divorce Law and Mediation here in Lloydminster for another episode of Healthy, Thriving Family After Divorce. Now, Stephanie, last week we talked a little bit about spousal support. There is really a lot of things to discuss when it comes to this issue. And today we're going to talk about once spousal support is in place, how does it change as time passes? That's the first question. How does it change as the circumstances change around spousal support?
That's a really good starting point, Stacey. And there's this topic, of course, is very complicated. So I'll try to keep it really simple for our viewers today. So once spousal support is documented by spouses, that's either by court order or by agreement, it's going to continue until some new condition arises. So today I'm going to cover 4 ways that spousal support can change. So the first way is easy. It's where there's a specific hurdle that's crossed. So you and your former spouse may have agreed or even been court ordered to pay support, for example, for a certain number of months or years, or even until a certain event occurs, like remarriage, job retraining, those sorts of things. If there is this stated endpoint, then there's often a couple of options for how that endpoint will look. So it may state that it's going to be reviewed at that time, meaning looked again, based on the circumstances, or it could end forever. So of course, the language of the documentation is really important to make sure that you know exactly what the future of spousal support is going to look like. So another way it can change is, of course, if you get a new court order, which changes the terms of the spousal support, or 2 spouses can, of course, agree to change spousal support. So lastly, I just want to raise this one final issue of death. So death can also affect spousal support. So in the event of the death of the recipient, spousal support will end. But if the paying spouse of spousal support dies, then it can get really complicated as to whether spousal support will continue to be payable by the deceased estate or by other sources. There might be life insurance proceeds or other sources of funds that could continue spousal support into the future.
So how does a person know if, in fact, they're eligible for a change or an end to their support?
So I want to distinguish 2 types of changes to support. So to be eligible to end or change support, the applicant needs to fit into one of 2 types of situations. So they will either need to be eligible for a review of support or a variation of support. So those are 2 legal terms. Let's go through each of them now. So if support is to be reviewed, that means that generally something about the award or the agreement needs to be looked at afresh in the future. So it may be the entire question of spousal support. So we went through this last week about entitlement, how much, how long, or it just may be just one particular part of the spousal support award that needs to be looked at. So in any event, it's about a fresh look at support based on a future set of circumstances. So how is self-sufficiency going? How is that career advancement or the training going? So secondly, if there's a variation of spousal support, so again, that's another legal term, it means that the person applying has to prove that there's been what's called, and again, this is another legal term, a material change of circumstances to justify that request. So of course, this can start to get very complicated, but it's important for viewers to know that there's hurdles to cross to be able to change support at a future date.
Stephanie, you mentioned a material change of circumstances. Can we talk a little bit about that? What exactly is that?
So again, it's another legal term, just like the word entitlement last week that we talked about. But this material change of circumstances is required to be eligible to vary spousal support. So the Supreme Court of Canada has weighed in on this question, and the standard has created a standard meaning for this term. So it means that the change is substantial, continuing, and if those circumstances were known at the time of the original order, it would have likely resulted in a different order. So let's go through some examples. Change of income for one or both spouses, losing a job and being unable to continue payment, retirement, the recipient spouse's income now exceeds the paying spouse's income where that wasn't the case before, self-sufficiency has been or ought to have been achieved, remarriage of the recipient spouse, or perhaps on an application of the recipient spouse, child support now has maybe ended, and then the recipient spouse wants to increase that support.
All right, Stephanie. Well, once again, a lot of information to go through, and we'll be back again next week to continue our conversation. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Stacey.